Now, to discuss electoral reforms and the process, I'm being joined live from Abuja by the Director, Voter Education and Publicity at INEC, Mr. Oluwole Osaze Uzi. Thanks a lot for joining us on the news at 10 tonight. Now, once again, electoral reforms...
Thank you for having me.
That's fine. Once again, electoral reforms are popular in the last couple of days. I mean, looking at the International Observer's report. But let me start by asking you what your assessment of that report is, talking about the EU Election Observer Mission report. What did you make of it?
Well, the observers were invited, international and domestic observers were invited to observe the process in the hope that they will report faithfully. And part of the conditions for accreditation is that after the exercise, they will submit their reports and their observations to the Commission. And the essence of this is to ensure that whatever they find on the field, we'll also look at the reports of our own monitors. We have those in-house monitors who went in the field, and we'll get those independent monitors, both domestic and foreign, to look at what they said, compare notes, and see whether they match, and if whatever recommendations are made, we'll study them. Individually, members of the Commission have been studying the reports, not just of the EU, but also of the joint NDI and IRI reports, and there are a couple more coming in the next couple of days and weeks. We'll look at all, synthesize the reports, and they're coming at a very important time for us because it's dovetailing into our own internal review of the process. We're meeting all the electoral officers, assistant electoral officers, those who actually conduct the elections are meeting at state level. Next week, they'll come to Abuja and we'll meet at the national level. Okay. So we'll confront them with some of these reports, these observations, and these findings, and find out what their reactions are to those things. And then before the Commission studies the thing deeply, compares notes, and takes a decision and makes its own views known to the public. All
right, you talked about the fact that you've had reports also from local observers. But the reason I'm talking about the latest report we've seen from the international observers is because they mentioned something in there talking about the fact that overall, the EU EOM concluded that elections were marred by transparency shortcomings, election security problems, and low turnout. Is that what your local observers are saying? And is that a fair assessment?
Well, we'll look at the whole gamut, just like the EU report did. They looked at all aspects, or the major aspects of the electoral process. And they looked at the mechanics of it, the nuts and bolts of it, the logistics. They looked at the role of security agencies. They looked at the role of the media. They looked at participation by persons, the different heads. And at the end of the day, they made 30 recommendations. The NDI-IRI report has similar recommendations. And part of the fundamental recommendations that are being made is such that will require the National Assembly and Executive coming together and in legislative intervention. Those ones that INEC can put on board without necessarily changing the laws, we will certainly administer. But they're all aspects of the reports we're looking into, even security matters. We also have a meeting with the security agencies under the auspices of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security. So the whole gamut, we'll meet with the media, we'll meet with CSOs, everything, and they're free to give us the observations on all aspects of the thing, and the reports of the international observers will also be on the table.
Okay, well, looking at electoral reforms, I mean, from what we understand, the Commission is concerned about the number of political parties that we have right now and the number moving forward. What is INEC proposing? I know you've talked about, we should look at the regulations and how many people can, make them, but what's your recommendation?
For now, INEC does not have a position on the total number of political parties. Definitely, the number of political parties contesting elections and sponsoring candidates has a bearing on, for example, the size of the ballot papers, has a bearing on security arrangements, has a bearing on the arrangement of the polling unit, because for now the law says each party sponsoring a candidate is entitled to present an agent. So if, for example, the projection set by the National Commission, we have 200 parties by 2023, there will be a minimum of 200 party agents. They're entitled to it, 200 party agents there. So it's a bit unwieldy, and these are considerations that come. And there are different issues. Many suggestions have been received. We'll synthesize all these suggestions. For example, some people said, look, countries, our neighboring countries, smaller countries like Niger, like Chad, like Republic of Benin, have more political parties than Nigeria does. People don't realize that. But in some instances, not all registered parties are on the ballot or getting the ballot. There might be a threshold for getting onto the ballot. India has regional parties, it has national parties. Is that the model we want to take? INEC does not have a position on it, but we'll listen to all suggestions and we'll make our own position known to the National Assembly. But for now, INEC does not have a particular position about the number of parties that is desirable or whether there should be a limit to the number of parties, but we're concerned that management of the electoral process becomes more complicated, the total number of political parties that you have. Yes.
All right, Director of Voter Education and Publicity, Mr. Oluwole Uzi, thanks for sharing that with us on the news at 10.